morning, Vietnam. All right, we are ready to roll this morning. Rob Brown here in Memphis, Brendan Martin in Ocala. Coach Ellis Johnson's going to check in with us. We're going to tap into what is happening with spring practice. Spring practice underway at a number of schools around the South and around the country. Basketball really heating up. It's tournament time starting Wednesday in Nashville. Franz Beer, the Iron Duke, will check in with us as well. Right now, who's going to be the number one seeds from the SEC? Looks like Florida, Auburn should both be number ones. Question is, can Auburn, a lot of people think they're the number one overall seed. Hopefully they'll hold on to that. If you look at the stats, it's not even close in the whole season resume, Auburn versus Duke. Duke can argue all they want. They're bringing everybody out of storage and mothballs to push the narrative because the ACC, it's basketball-wise, it's not keeping up with the SEC. But as Kevin Skarbinski said on Friday's show, the last time the SEC won the national championship in men's basketball was 2012, John Calipari in Kentucky. Since then, the Big East has reeled off 5 national championships, the ACC 3, and the Big 12 2. So, SEC, great regular season, got to prove it. Brendan and I were talking before the show. It's all about March Madness. Hey, take a picture of that QR code with your phone. Subscribe. We are live on X, Facebook, YouTube, simultaneously on 7 platforms. I mean, reels and pieces are cut up and put out all over the place every day. Share the show. Get a pen and paper handy because here we go. It is a Monday, March 10th. Wow.
Golly, March 10th, dude.
Already payday for a lot of people. I mean, and cowboy hats. I saw some cool ones, men and women's hats, by the way. Get out there. Hewlett and Dunn's got a massive hat collection. Right. Coach Johnson, we know how much the coaches love spring practice for football. The players love it even more. A lot of the schools will split 5 days, spring break, and then come back and finish spring practice. So it can last, anywhere from 5 or 6 weeks long. There is a growing trend. Matt Rule at Nebraska, Sarkisian at Texas, Lincoln Riley, Southern Cal. They're not in favor of these spring games. But I like your argument for a lot of in the deep South, and we cover, college football in the South like kudzu and cotton. That's the only way a lot of the fans can afford to go, at least take their whole family and see the team, meet the players, coaches, and get autographs. Really, more than anything, it's a glorified fan photo day now, isn't it?
It is. And also, Heupel, there was a small piece of ESPN this morning. He was talking about how he liked the big stage element of it. I think what he was referring to is it's the first time some of those kids get in front of a huge fan base.
Yeah.
In a stadium and everything. And if you had a young quarterback, I would understand that. I don't know why it would help Emelieva right now. He's been in some bad places this last year, and so he's ready. He's baptized and ready. But I don't know. I guess it's an endless argument. I do see the reasons some of them want to cut back, but I do understand why some schools still want to have them, and it's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I said I was talking about when I was in college. I remember when I was at Auburn, the high school players were coming down there. Ben Tamburello, John Hudson, and they were getting. This was in '86 and '87. They were getting mobbed by the fans, so they knew about them then. And it's like we always say, living in Memphis. Can you imagine what Elvis Presley's life would have been like with social media? Because even 50 years ago, the sightings of the King were like midnight at Poplar and Perkins. He just left Goldsmiths, and a guy, my teacher, Coach Scully, goes, big limo pulls up next to me, and the back window rolls down, and this guy with the rings rolls his fingers, hey, baby. And he goes, that's Elvis. And then they sped off. He was bigger than life. But, Coach, spring practice, if anything, it's 15 days to get stuff put together. Kind of give people an idea, and we're going to be talking a lot of college football and basketball. I love this Monday back and forth. But how much preparation goes into spring practice, and what happens if you do a half-assed job as a staff preparing in the spring? I can't imagine it's anything but a nightmare in August.
Well, you only got 15 sessions now. It used to be a lot more when I came through back in the dark ages. But I mean, you don't waste any time in a college football program. If you do, it's just time you'll never get back.
Yeah.
That's why I always believed that being extremely organized when you went on the practice field, you could always vary off the schedule a little bit if you needed to. But if you weren't meticulously organized going in, you waste time. And you look back and you realize you couldn't afford some of that time you threw away. So there's a lot of planning that goes into it, especially if you brought in a new coordinator. You want to make sure you got to do some installation, putting in a new system, and really what you really want to do in spring is fundamentals and developing younger players and players who have a shot to get in at too deep. That's the main focus. But if you've got a new coordinator and for some reason you change your system, you got to put some time into that because you got to get a head start.
Yeah, and toward the end of last week on Buddy Martin's show, Brendan can actually shed a lot of light on this. DJ Lagway at Florida. I mean, talk about, is he hurt? Is there something going on there? Who's your backup? And coach, I can't imagine. Yeah, I can't imagine. I can see it. Anxiety, Xanax, whatever. Coach is going, we've invested millions in NIL to a particular quarterback. You pick the school, just fill in the blank. And your backup, well, he's already gone to another school because, he was 18 years old and he wasn't starting at an SEC school. That we've got to find backups. Nobody. That's the hardest thing out there. I can see it. Just for a coach is finding a quarterback.
It's mirroring in NFL now. It's always hard for them to have a really good backup quarterback. They get into salary cap. They get into all these things. And if a player's good enough in the NFL to be a starter, although he may not be as good as the guy he's backing up, he wants to go somewhere else and start. And college is becoming the same way. It's like you said, they can leave now, and they will. If they think they can get on the field or somebody gives them a little more money, they'll pick up and go. And I would say you're exactly right. That's one of the hardest things on the depth chart these days is to keep at least a backup quarterback that can function.
Yeah, and as far as offensive linemen, that's the second thing. It takes – I've never talked to a coach who said it took anything less than 2 years to develop an offensive lineman. And you look now at the lack of these offensive linemen and depth. There are no Bill Fralics out there. There are very few Andre Smiths or Ed King. Coach, can you talk to the players or about it? Or do you think they're even listening now about, hey, stick around? You'd be surprised at what can happen if you develop, if you let us develop you and you play your part too, kind of the one or on off principle.
Yeah, there are a few. I think there are some. Those aren't sexy stories though. So the media doesn't want to pick them up. They don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about somebody leaving Georgia, going to Miami, and what kind of car he drives and all that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's just, that's the way it's going to be as far as social media and regular media. Yeah. But there's still plenty of kids who stay because they think their time's coming.
Yeah.
And they work to get that starting position. Talking about offensive line, though, you're exactly right. Most offensive line coaches I've been around say they have to have 7 good offensive linemen when they go into a game. Anything below that, you're rolling the dice because somebody's going to go down in the first quarter and you're stuck. And I said, why 7? He said the 2 that are behind those front 5 have got to be able to play any position, or you better have your backup center starting at left or right guard, or what he can slide over to center, and you bring in that 6th, the best offensive lineman. But they said you got to have a minimum of 7 kids who can play and win any game that you're in, and that's hard to do now. It really is. You got 7, you got 10, you may have 13. but they're not capable of going in the game without hurting the football team.
Well, I mean, it goes back to what Brother Oliver used to talk about, interchangeability. Everybody on the defense, and you know this because that's how you are, everybody else knowing everybody else's assignments. That's how you could blitz 10 or 11 occasionally on special occasions, which I've never seen another coordinator do that, but guys knowing how to slip in and play a corner or a safety. And now you got these, I don't really like it when these football people get on TV and try to talk in all these acronyms, trying to prove how smart they are. If I talk to my clients about scattergrams and tranches in financial markets, they're going to go, do what? Just tell me if I'm losing money or making money. But nickel package, dime package. And now you got like a quarter. And what did we see a couple of times? Like almost 3-5-3 lineups. How hard is it to put something like that in? That's why spring practice, I guess, is so important.
It is, and it's not hard to put it in.
Okay.
What you got to have your personnel better fit it. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
If you play a 3-5-3 or you play a 4-2 or you play a 3-4, a lot of that semantics. Yes, they're different schemes. Which one's the best, coach? They're all good, and they're all bad. And if you got players that fit the scheme, they're good. And if you got some players that don't fit the scheme and you're just trying to run it because you had success with it before, it's not going to work. It's more about the players than it is the scheme. You want to make sure you know the scheme. You want to know how to adjust the scheme. If you got to make changes at halftime or whatever you got to do with it. But as far as the scheme making plays, the players make the plays.
Yeah. And you go back looking at South Carolina from last year. In the last 40 years, I think when you were there, South Carolina won 11 games, 2011, 2012, 2013. Since then, they've had a 9-win season, which was last year with Shane Beamer. You've got Lenora Sellers, big NIL deal. He was a different quarterback, though, in the bowl game since he got that big deal. I guess he's had a little bit of time to let that soak in. But I got to ask you from a coaching standpoint, I was told one time it takes about a year and a half for the players to learn a new defense. With turnover being what it is today, are the kids having to study more, or are they just magically better athletes, or is it both?
Well, they're got more time. I know that. They can do things with players outside of spring practice and outside of actual fall practice. We had no contact with the players as what we used to, call the 10 coaches.
Yeah.
Now it's just so, I mean, seriously, we got, some of these places got 30 coaches on the field. Every assistant coach has got an assistant to him now, where they got 2 coaches for each position. A lot of your coaches are allowed to work with the players outside of spring practice and outside of fall practice. They can't wear any kind of pads, but they can go out and be teaching them the system when other coaches are on the road recruiting. So it's a lot different now. And so it is a little bit more time to put into it. But I agree 100% with what you said. It's amazing after kids have been in a system for 2 years and even 3 years. The longer we were together at South Carolina, some of the things we were doing, we weren't that complicated in what we were running, but we were really complicated on what the players could change out on the field. And I had some kids that could do it as well as I could do it. And they'd been there 3 years, 4 years. Yeah. So, you're making some great points. And there's less of that now with this portal and people moving in and out. But I think you can be too complicated sometime and you tie up your players. It keeps them from turning it loose and making plays.
Yeah, and looking at the SEC, we don't have divisions anymore, and I don't know if we're going to go back to it or not. With the model that we have, it was kind of fun having East versus West, but now the West, if you went by pure geographical lines, would be a nightmare because you'd be throwing Texas and Oklahoma into what was already the toughest division. Why do we think, and I don't think it is, there was a period where the SEC East dominated.
Right. When they first split it, I would say the East was tougher for the first 6 years. 7 years.
Yeah. And so I don't know if we'll go back to that or not. it creates excitement, but then again, I don't think there was any lack of excitement this year. I mean, it's just not.
No, I don't know if they can do it with the additional teams. I liked it. I thought it was good. You could be a division champ, and then you play in the championship game, maybe the conference champ, and you say, well, there were two teams over here in this division with one loss apiece, and the team that got in from the other division, they had 3 losses this year, but the rest of them in that division had 4 losses. And I know the year we played Auburn for the championship, hell, we had 3 conference losses, I think, coming in, maybe 2. And but we were the best team in the East. And our losses were to LSU and Auburn during the course of the year. We won the East because we beat the teams in the East. But I don't know. It's an endless argument, I guess. I think since they've gone to these mega conferences, I just think the divisions, the East-West thing, and all of the conferences is probably going to go by the wayside.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, it's just, like I said, it was something that was fun for conversation. But when you put 16 teams together and you throw in Texas and Oklahoma, you don't need any more drama per se. When I'm
concerned we're going to lose the old rivals. And you say, oh, they'll never lose Auburn, Alabama. They'll never lose Georgia. Just wait. The more the Disney execs have control of it, and the more they keep trying to sign the best contract to get the best attractive games on TV, some of those things are going to be in danger.
Yeah. That's what I'm concerned about is Disney, people in New York that don't know college football. They just know money and numbers, taking away the rivalries and saying, well, we could do better than this. We know better than you. And, you remember when, was it, I guess, Brent Yormack, the commissioner of the Big 12, he's got a pretty good background in media, but they also tried that George Kliavkoff with the Pac-12. That didn't work. They think they know media. They had a guy, the former commissioner, Scott, forgot his last, Larry Scott, I can't remember his first name, of the Pac-12, thought they could grow the conference through the non-revenue sports. I mean, how ass backwards is that to think that let's find what makes the least money and try to grow the company that way? Tell the shareholders that at the next board meeting.
South Carolina just won the SEC in women's basketball. That's going to cost them. That's going to cost them about $5 million.
Yeah,
it really. It's just the way it is. The reality of it.
Yeah, and
but I tell you one thing I saw also briefly. Big 12 is moving 10 games to Friday night this year. Now, as a TV addict, to try to find some football to watch when I don't have anything to do on a particular night, I'm glad. But I think that is a sign of, it's kind of a stepchild, if you will. When you move games to Friday, you're looking for any way you can to get exposure and try to, get the spotlight for a little while. I don't think it's a healthy thing overall for football, but this Big Ten SEC thing is really becoming a monster.
It is, and we don't want to have 2 leagues controlling everything, but I agree with you about the Big 12. When you go to Friday night, we hate it as college fans when the NFL tries to encroach on our Saturdays. High school hates it, I'm sure, when college tries to encroach on their Fridays. Now, you're going to have a few games on Friday night, but 12 of them, that's a big game every Friday. That's dangerous. We need to leave high school football for what it is. And you go back when you go in the Northeast and you watch high school football games, they're always played in the daytime, I think on Saturdays. So
a lot of them are. You're right.
Yeah, and I don't know what the reason is for that, but
Rob, I've been to high schools recruiting up in those northeastern states, and the head coach doesn't work at school. He's a bartender somewhere. We were recruiting a kid at Clemson back in the 90s. He was in some area of New York, not in the city, but not too far from it.
Yeah.
His coach was a bartender, and the assistant coaches were whoever he could get to help him out. And
wow.
And the games were played just like you said. They were played in the daytime. Part of it was because of crime. They didn't want to play them at night. But part of it was because it was about the only time we could get some people to come watch the game. You know, the TV people talk about footprints, you know, and demographics. And you talk about how many more TV sets there are maybe in the ACC going up the Eastern Seaboard. Maybe how many more TV sets there were out in Los Angeles and San Francisco and so forth. But these TV sets don't all watch college football.
No.
You know, there are college football footprints and there are football footprints. There are areas in the country, certainly not in the South and the Southwest too much, but there are areas of the country that love football, but they could give a rat about college football.
That's right.
And so, you know, it's just like you talk about the Big East, and they've won more national championships in basketball. But those days are coming to an end because they're not getting enough NIL money. Pretty soon, the SEC and Big Ten teams are going to buy them out because they're going to get all the good players.
Yeah,
and that's where you'll see the national champions come from in the basketball as well as the football, and because they're going to have all the money.
Yeah. Well, you sent me something yesterday about the WNBA, and when you've got people like Angel Reese, just that's not who I would have out there, you know, trying to advocate and articulate your talking points. They are subsidized by the NBA. And the balance sheet shows they're losing $400 million. If I were then, I would be saying stuff like, I would be saying a lot of things, but what I would be saying is I would be quiet because you are not making us money, and be lucky we're paying you any kind of a salary. And that's why I'm saying that the free market, and it will fix this. But when you're subsidized by the NBA, I don't know if they're going to let it fail. But the free market, you know, like you just mentioned, South Carolina just won the SEC women's tournament, and it's going to cost them about $5 million to do that. Now, football wins the SEC championship. And it ain't going to cost you. It's going to make you a ton of money. And I'm trying to get Franz Beard in here right now, and says he's in the green room. Can't jump in, but Franz, jump through that wall, man. We're waiting here. There you are. Franz, hey, Brendan was telling me he had the inclement weather policy is in effect in California.
We got tornadoes in Florida today.
That's what he was telling me this morning. And I'm like, these weather apps are terrible, because I was like going, God bless, I'm going to look at the weather down there. And it says 70% chance of light rain. So much for the weatherman, but they get paid well, and it doesn't matter how many times they're wrong. But I hope y'all are okay. But Franz, I was sitting there going, I know we talked on the phone yesterday when I was going over to Memphis, and I was like, normally I send you a text. I was going, worried about that. But Coach Johnson, Franz, sent me something yesterday about the WNBA losing all this money, and Angel Reese saying, we're going to sit if you don't give us what we want. Well, get ready to sit on your ass, Angel, because unless the NBA wants to continue to hemorrhage money, I don't think they're going to throw money. I mean, she's a hell of a basketball player. She needs to focus on basketball.
I'll tell you what. That league got a lifeline in the form of Caitlin Clark, and you look at how she was treated by the other players.
Exactly.
And you know, I'm not going to get into all the reasons that I know that are there, because then I'd be considered politically incorrect. But I'll just put it like this: Caitlin Clark threw the league a lifeline, and they need to she is the face of that league. And if they don't make her even more of a face, then it's just a waste of money. It's just throwing money down a rat hole.
Yeah.
They
just like Michael Jordan with the NBA.
Well, they had the greatest player in WNBA history in Diana Taurasi, and they never bothered to market Diana Taurasi. This is a league that's got Caitlin Clark. They need to market her. They need to, just like Michael Jordan, all of a sudden it's got to be the shoes,
Yeah.
Mars Blackman and Michael Jordan, that they made the Nike brand. Whatever Uncle Phil has paid Michael, he needs to write a check for twice that and give him more.
Yeah.
Because he is the reason Nike exists, and Nike is as powerful and as strong and as rich as it is right now. And they owe it to one person only, and it ain't LeBron James, who is I don't hear kids growing up saying, I want to be like LeBron. Bullshit. Yeah. Pardon my expression. Yeah. But kids grew up saying, be like Mike.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they still say, be like Mike.
That's right. That's so true. I mean, and Coach, the free market, people are constantly telling me I'm wrong about the free market correcting things, but I promise you, I really believe this. It will correct NIL, the portal, all this stuff, because the NFL will start to put data out, or the colleges will, or somebody with a spine that shows all this moving around and this lack of development isn't preparing, isn't preparing these guys for the NFL or the NBA. So look, getting paid is one thing. That's okay. But, at least I think there ought to be a thing, if you're going to get paid a substantial amount of money, you have a contract and you are supposed to stay at one school for at least 3 years. These guys want to be treated like professionals and adults, don't they? We all have worked under contracts, haven't we? Yes. We know what happens and I've never done it, but if you were trying to breach a contract, you're going to be held. Oh my God, a term. If these snowflakes don't like it, I don't give a damn. But accountability, you got to do it. By the way, newsflash from Wesley Duncan, on-the-spot reporter in Fort Lauderdale. The Auburn-Baylor game has been moved to Friday night. So the Big 12, Coach Johnson, you're right. But I didn't mean to interrupt you, but go ahead.
No, well, a little bit of an analogy to what you just said. If somebody will track it, it will tell the story. I'll give you one example. I don't know if you guys even know it, but about 15, 20 years ago, and of course still was coaching, and the NCAA came in with the 20-hour rule or the 40-hour rule. Anyhow, it limited you to the number of hours that you could literally have the players over there doing anything, physical practice, lifting, meetings, films, or anything. And it was because they felt like sometimes they were just being swamped and they weren't able to take advantage of the college experience, both academically and socially, all this bull crap. Anyhow, pro coaches told us that within 6 or 7 years, they noticed that they were getting players from the colleges that didn't know how to work. In other words, they weren't used to coming over to the facility and spending 6 and 7 hours a day. A lot of it, people don't understand, a lot of these pro teams, they come in and they meet with them and they watch film and they go get some lunch and they come back and they go over some more stuff and then they go out on the field and they practice. And they do it 2 or 3 days. Now, they do have more days off because physically they have to have a rest day. But they said it was obvious. When the colleges started that stuff, kids were coming into the league and they couldn't handle the time that they were putting on them, that they had to be at that facility.
Well, and that's so true of, I'll give you an example of an orthopedic surgeon who deals with residents at a big time medical school and also in his hospital. And he said, the kids coming in today, the residents, a lot of them bitch and cry and go to HR about having to work those 36-hour rotations and how that they're putting too much pressure on them. And when a surgeon, rips their ass, they fall apart. You think this stuff doesn't matter? How'd you like to have a doctor that can't handle pressure or adversity or accountability? I mean, this is a big damn deal. Franz Beard from Alachua County, Florida, Franz, I'm sorry it was like Franz was at the door. He was Carlton the doorman. I didn't know. Hey, I didn't know you were there, and I was texting going, "Hey, where are you?" So my
I
apologies.
was there. Here's
I knew
here's
you
the
would
thing
be.
that they would be smart to do with football, and that is okay. You play it in the fall, that's fine, and when the bowl game's over, eliminate spring football. No spring practice, nothing. They can come work in the weight room. You can give them a schedule, all that, but let them be in their academics are right there in the spring, and let's say the first summer A. From that point on, it's football until the end of the year.
Yeah.
Let them practice, let them work. The coaches can do all the other stuff and everything. But if you wanted the kids to be college students, give them that they can have spring break. They can go back to their go back to their high school and go out with their prom and have a prom date and everything like that they missed because they early enrolled, whatever. But let them do that. Give them this time. And then, as Coach Johnson said, the rest of the time, your butt is mine. Says, I've heard coaches say that. Only another term, boy, your butt is mine from now on. Okay, fine. Do it. Then you can do it. You can work them out. You can do all the stuff you need to do there. They would be smart to do that with baseball. Okay, fine. Make the fall your academic time. That's fine. Then play baseball and play baseball not only there, but play it until August 1. Move your College World Series back. Make that, and then you've got all of July when there's nothing on TV. Give him, all of that. How dumb we are in that we don't realize that. And the problem is we've let the academics have the people up there with Dr. So-and-so. And as I told somebody the other day, PhD, pilot higher and deeper. It doesn't mean you're smarter than I am. It just means you went to school more years.
Yeah.
How dumb we are that we do not market this stuff. Like we were talking, the WNBA doesn't market. Okay, you got baseball and you're ending it in June. Holy cow. What are you going to do in July when there's nothing on TV? Move it back.
Yeah, friends, I let me say
market
something.
This stuff.
Yeah.
Treat it like a business.
You do. And let me say something, and I don't know if we can get the QR code up or not, but I want to say something about Winter Timber Outdoors. It's turkey season, folks. You got to have the right loads, the right guns, the right ground blinds, decoys. Get to Winter Timber Outdoors, Athens, Alabama. That's on the top of the state, right next to Huntsville. That is a beautiful store they've got, and they're building another one down in Auburn. So take a look at the map behind me. You can see it there. The SEC map that Barnwood Brenda made for me. And she can make one for you too. They're awesome. Made out of cypress, barnwood, or cedar. They're going to try to hit all the towns in the SEC footprint. Got a store under construction in Auburn. They're looking in Florida. They're looking in Fayetteville. Memphis, something soon should be announced. But everything that you need for the shooting sports, with over 2,000 shotguns, rifles, and handguns in the store, and a knowledgeable staff, and the investors, the partners. I know a couple of them. I've known one of them 30 years. They're smart people. Southern made, Southern owned, Southern pride. Hey, we like to say on Sidelines, we cover college sports in the South like kudzu and cotton. If you're an outdoorsman, you love the shooting sports, get to Winter Timber in Athens, Alabama, soon at a place near you. Friends, you're knocking the skin off the ball. And I think Coach Johnson, when people say, well, these guys need some time off. Well, when they go home in the summer, after they finish playing college baseball, they're going to go to these summer leagues, the Cape Cod League or whatever. That's all they're going to do anyway. Why not stay in college? And France is right. There ain't a whole lot on TV in July. I mean, there's just late June, the College World Series is over. I don't think that's too bad of a gig. And I think it's a great way to get fans on your college campus during the summer. Why not?
Yeah, I'd love to see it much longer. I think they start practice too early.
Yeah. Thank you, Franz.
They're out there playing baseball in sweats. It's just too early.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, it's nothing wrong with that.
Market this stuff, and the problem is, we have let Dr. So-and-so, who has a degree in ancient Sanskrit, be the president of a university, and he says, "Well, we could have a big chess match, and you fill that stadium." Come on,
ain't gonna happen.
How many people will go see a chemistry test? Not too many.
Yeah,
but you want to play football, you can get a whole bunch of folks who will come see football.
Yeah,
and or basketball,
yeah.
And we miss the boat, and that is because we don't treat it like a business. And people can complain all they want to right now that players are getting paid and everything. They've always been paid. It's just now it's legal, and now that it's out in the open, we have a chance to turn this into the business it's always been. Only the problem is it's always been mismanaged. Now, At least you got a chance to get a handle on it.
Yeah. No, both of y'all are making great points. Let's pivot to some basketball right now, because, I mean, Coach Johnson, Franz and I, we all agree, you do college baseball, go to late July. And then by then you've got, media days for football is SEC media days is mid-July, but the SEC network, they're starved for content. And there you go. You've got baseball, and you say you're competing against the major leagues. Whatever. They are already trying to, when college football playoffs were on Saturdays, how quickly did the NFL get right up against the college game? And, without the college game being so successful, the NFL would die on the vine.
Yep.
I don't know why we don't. The college football needs a commissioner, I would say, like Roger Goodell, but no, someone way better than that guy. He gets paid $64 million a year to do to go hug players on draft day. No. We got to do better than that. Nick Saban, Coach Johnson, someone like y'all that's got a spine, that's not afraid to say what they're going to, what they believe. All right, looking at this basketball right now, I predicted the SEC champion would be 14-4. Well, Auburn's 15-3. Florida's right behind them at 14-4. Bama at 13-5. Tennessee 12-6. A&M 11-7. Kentucky 10-8. So I don't know. We're going to have 12, 13. A lot of people think SEC teams get to the tournament. Coach Johnson, the only thing more annoying than they're on the bubble, first four in, first four out, would be Martha on the Medicare commercials, the supplement commercials, or
the dancing people, I can think of dancing people with the
Ozempic, yeah,
and they're dancing,
Yeah, they're dancing. That's beyond annoying. But thinking about it, Coach, getting to the tournament is great if you hadn't been there in a long time. But you've been part of championship programs in football. In basketball, there's a lot more games. And Doug Dean said on this show Friday, he's right. We've got to get away from the hut mentality of football transferred over into basketball, because you're playing a game every 3 days. There's a lot quicker turnaround. As a coach.
Uh-oh
is right. All right, we can keep talking. We can keep talking.
I think this SEC basketball is mirroring a little bit the SEC football. Rob, we lost you for a second.
I saw that.
There was a time last fall, remember we were talking, and I used the term cannibalize.
Yes.
They were playing each other and beating each other up, and you're sitting there looking at it and say, it's the best conference, top to bottom in America. But when it really got down to it, didn't do a whole lot of damage in that playoff as a group. But the basketball is the same way. I was listening to the radio the other day, driving down the road. Don't remember who the sports talk person was, but he was talking about that fatigue was becoming a factor on the tail end of this SEC season.
Yeah.
These guys are all playing top 15 teams, and it's almost every 3 days they've got to play a top 15 team. And it's going to end up making them tougher and better and so forth. But I think there's not only some physical fatigue, there's some mental fatigue. Possibly what happened with Auburn, maybe Alabama. Those guys have lost more games in the last 2 weeks than they have the previous part of the year. And I just think it's a tough road. And right there at the tail end, like you said, they're going to all get in. They're going to have some really great seeds.
Yeah. Don't
be surprised to see some of them get bumped pretty early.
Yeah, and I think you got to – Francis, basketball, we talk about it, all these sports, it's so mental right now because – and when people say, well, losing a game doesn't matter if you've already wrapped up the number 1 overall seed. Well, maybe so in your mind. I detest losing. I want to be the first one out of bed in the morning. My wife and I have a competition on that. I love to be, I don't know. It's not okay to lose. And I don't think any Auburn people are okay with losing to your biggest rival on a last second shot. But that was, Alabama was excited. They were desperate trying to get their seed improved. Franz, God almighty, you look at top to bottom in the SEC, there may be 2 number 1 seeds. I don't think they're going to be 3, but right now Florida's clicking on all cylinders. They finished 14-4, a game back, but damn, they're hot. And they look at that Georgia game, and you said that was likely a catalyst for them. They've won 9 of their last 10.
Well, here's the thing that let me throw something in, about Auburn real quick, okay? And I'm going to be at the SEC, okay? So, Rob, you can check me in every morning because I will be there in Nashville. Well, I'll be there Friday anyway.
Yeah.
Because the tournament really doesn't start till Friday when all the, as the late great Buddy Baker used to say when we'd play pool at Norman's across from the street from the Today newspaper, get these trash fish off the pond, okay?
Yeah. Well, it's like a lot of people in Arkansas, if it ain't a mallard, it's a scrap duck.
Yeah, well, all right, there you go. But here's the thing I got to tell you. Auburn is bored right now. They are. They've been so good so long. 2006, the Gators lose 3 straight games there at the end of the year. And everybody is saying, oh, Florida doesn't have it. They have just lost their mojo. Oh, ain't that a shame? Well, guess what?
Yeah.
Florida was bored. They were beating people up, and they'd been beating people up, and they go into these games and say, we are so much better than these people. It's unbelievable. They got to the SEC tournament, and all of a sudden it was like, okay, now the real season has begun. Florida goes 9-0. They win the 3 games in Nashville. Then they go 6-0, beat UCLA in the national championship game. Gosh, I remember that so well because the UCLA dance team was like 6 feet away from me or from where my seat on press row. Oh my gosh, her name was Bambi. Honest to goodness.
Terrible place to be, Franz.
It was. But anyway, Auburn's bored right now. Right now, Florida is not bored. No. And the reason Florida's not bored is because we had that 20-point loss to Tennessee. That was a wake-up call. We had another wake-up call when we went down by 26 in Athens and then came back and actually took the lead. From that moment on, Florida has been a team that has these other people in their sights. And, Coach, you know this from football. You can get to that point where you hit this moment where you say, oh, my gosh. And then, but it sparks something. Real competitors have those moments. People forget that just because you're a great competitor doesn't mean you have highs and lows just like everybody else. It just means that when you are that at that point in time, you are so visible to everybody that your highs are overemphasize your lows the same thing. People put too much. You're who is it says you're never as good as you think you are. You're never as bad as others think you are. And this is what happens in basketball. And we're going to find out when we get to the SEC tournament, for example, that the two most dangerous teams in the SEC tournament, one of them, his name is Texas A&M, and the other one's name is Missouri, because these guys hit a wall, and if they can come down off that wall, coming off from that, and all of a sudden shake their heads and clear their heads and play, they're dangerous because Missouri can run with anybody, and the Aggies, as you know, Rob, they turn everything into a rock fight.
They do, and they are pesky. Hey, there's something Buddy Martin sent me from down in L.A. About Mr. Gator basketball's March Madness front row seat live from Nashville SEC tournament Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. NCAA live from Raleigh all week. And a couple of cool stats, by the way, for the state of Florida. Pretty cool. Number one in hoops, possibly. They should be right now. Per latest U.S. News rankings of all 50 states. Number one economy, Florida. Number one in education, Florida. That's pretty damn impressive. That's why there's 23 million plus people living there. All you got to do is go to South Dakota in November, and I've been up there many times hunting, and get caught in a blizzard, and you can see why people will take everything they've got and move to and live in a trailer park if they have to, with snakes and gators and panthers to beat that. But it's also
when you can throw off a sheet and break into a sweat, it's a good day.
Yeah, and no state income tax always helps. But guys, you think about what Franz just said. Teams getting bored. Coach, do you think there's anything gained in losing? I think the only way there is if you can take that and say, you see what happens when you don't put in 110%. This is what happens to you. Other than that, you're missing a teachable moment.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely something to that. Getting beat motivates competitors, but they're getting to this time of the year where you can't say, that was a tough loss, but we're going to learn from it.
Yeah.
And guess what? You're in NCAA tournament now. If you lost, you can't play anymore.
Yeah.
So, hopefully they better get that one done before they get into the bracket, because when you get into bracket, there are no teachable moments. There are just eliminations.
Yeah. And you've got one more mulligan. Everybody's got one more mulligan in the SEC. That's the SEC tournament.
Well, the curious thing will be how, I see it in the baseball tournament. Let's see if we see it in the basketball tournament. Some of these, if coaches were honest with you, they'd tell you these conference tournaments are not good to go out there and just leave your guts on the floor to try to win it. And you go into the bracket and you're drained, or you're just worn out or whatever. I don't know. I know they probably don't put as much emphasis on it as people think they do.
Yeah, they don't. And along that line, when you watch March Madness, everything's completely different. I mean, you're playing in a lot of times these bigger arenas, cavernous arenas, and your lack of depth perception. Remember that character on Saturday Night Live with Kevin Nealon, Mr. No Depth Perception? That's very hard to find the rims. And if you don't, and they give everybody a couple of hours of practice time when you get to those tournament sites, but everything's different. It's just, what's that song that we hear? One shining moment. It's all it takes. One shining moment. And the SEC, friends, we're talking maybe 13 teams could get into the tournament.
There will be 13.
Okay. And then 2 possibly to the NIT. Again, you don't want to be that one that doesn't get invited to anything, but it's going to happen to somebody. Could be 2 teams.
Yeah.
Friends, the committee, give me your top 4 seeds. Even if these teams lose in their conference tournaments, that you think will still be the top 4 seeds, and who you think will be the number 1 overall seed at the county fair?
I'll tell you who the number 1 overall seed should be, but I'll tell you, they're dying to give the number 1 overall seed to Duke.
Yeah.
Duke has not played a ranked team since they beat Auburn. They beat Auburn thanks to some really kind officiating at some Cameron Indoor Magic, where they shot 15 more free throws, when it was no autopsy, no foul for Duke defense. But, let me tickle you, on if I'm Auburn and I get nailed with a foul call. And Duke's going to get a number 1 seed. And that's because it's Duke and this reverence for Duke, which they shouldn't have. I mean, they've been good, but are they, I saw something the other day said Duke had the 99 or 2000, the greatest team ever. I would put Florida against any team I've seen since Kentucky 1995, when Kentucky had about, what was it? A 13-man roster and 21 of them made the NBA. Duke's going to get a number 1. They're dying to give one to Kelvin Sampson because they think that Kelvin deserves one. And even though he cheats everywhere he's ever been, he's gotten on every team he ever coached, got on probation. And I know something? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. When I was first coming up in Wilmington, North Carolina, I had to cover Red Springs. And Kelvin's dad was a cheater. He went to Pembroke State, played for Lacey Gain. He was a cheater. And I mean, it's in his blood. It's in his upbringing. It's been in his basketball pedigree. They're going to give him a number 1 seed. He doesn't deserve one. The other 2 have to go to SEC teams, and it should be Florida, and it should be Auburn. Now, I can also tell you this: they're dying to give a number 1 seed to Tom Izzo.
Oh yeah,
great guy, but what has he done lately? Nothing. And it's Michigan State, because they're saying, if these people in the committee room are being told, well, we need the TV sets. We need those Big Ten TV sets. So, we got a 16-team or 18-team Big Ten. So 35 of them need to be into the NCAA tournament. We got 68 teams. So what? So what if Walla Walla Technical Institute homeless shelter, which won its league beating the Convent, gets left out?
Yeah. Well,
that's got to have those TV sets.
And Coach Johnson, you're right. And I'm going to say this real quick about Landers Ford, folks. You're going to have to get your car, truck, SUV serviced. They'll pick you up at your home or your office, provide round-trip transportation from the service department at Landers. Poplar in Houston, Levy out in Collierville. That's LandersFordMemphis.com. Brad Bellamy, the general manager, was on here Friday talking about what Ford's doing, the Ford promise, the Ford trucks, the commitment that they make. They've got a vehicle for any price range, and they will work hard with you to get you in the vehicle. He mentioned somebody came in recently, and it took about 30 minutes to seal the deal. They also spent one time like 8 hours with somebody who had, tough credit situation, but they worked something out. That's pretty cool when someone will go that far to help you achieve your goals. Landers, the name, they're all over the Mid-South, all over the country. They're the number 1 Ford dealership in the Mid-South, and they will deliver anywhere. Get out there, check out all the inventory. Poplar in Houston, Levy. That's LandersFordMemphis.com. And if you go there, tell them you heard about it on Sidelines. They'll take $500 off. And let them know, because I got a lot of friends that go there. Major Fusel, Corey Carter, great people out there. MJ bought Bronco out there recently. Can't stop driving that thing. He's all over the country like Billy Graham. It's awesome. And also right down the street from him, Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the square, the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. Audrey and I stopped by there Friday. They got these awesome new earrings that are made by JM's mom, JM Huffman's mom. Man, Audrey bought, 4 or 5 pairs. They're awesome looking earrings. They've got boots, incredible selection. I saw a pair of elephant boots the other day. They've got ostrich boots. They've got rattlesnake boots. They've also got great work boots. And these Danner shoes, the trail shoes, you can wear them like running shoes. The best shoe for foot support. I love them. And they've got them there. And then the Danner snake boots. You can get yourself geared up. Filson, Barber, great looking women's clothes and luggage. HewlettandDunn.com, open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Great selection of hats, too. Coach Johnson, what he just said about those TV sets, and Franz, I'm not sure if you were in with us or if you were still on the outside looking in like Clifford the Big Red Dog, but those TV sets, Coach, in the Northeast, they will watch basketball. And the Big Ten, they're big in the Northeast. I think Tom Izzo is a wonderful guy because he's an intense, hard-ass driven coach. I love coaches like that. Wow. And then the Duke factor. When you're a coach and you've played a really difficult schedule, as Franz alluded to, and you're going, okay, we've got 15, 16 quad one wins, and this other school's got 6. But in the eyes of the TV people, like you say, Disney and all that, we got to have the TV sets. Does that make you want to throw up when they screw you over and put them here and you're over here?
Well, they'll try, but I think if there's enough distance between these teams, they have to be careful about that. When the average fan to the really avid fan can all tell that these guys are not on that same level with the others, I think they'll have a hard time doing that. But you can bet in football, the committee, I don't like the committee. They need to stop with the committee. If they're going to have a committee, they need to still use a BCS formula. When you start doing polls and votes and committees and selections and all that, it's all human nature. And it's hard to get it out of it. And the only way is when it's just clear-cut, obvious difference. Then it may not happen. But otherwise, I totally agree with Franz. They will try everything they can to get the brands on the TV. And, you look, and one reason the Big Ten is so strong up in there right now is the Big East is faded. They don't have the NIL money. What happened to Gonzaga? Gonzaga's disappeared. They used to be in the top 5 for like 10 years in a row.
Yeah.
NIL, it can't keep up anymore. If you look at the top 25 in basketball, it's gradually looking more and more over the years like the top 25 in football. Not the same order, but the same schools because they got all the money. Football's bringing all the money. Rick Pitino is probably the biggest exception this year. What he's done at St. John's, it's kind of like being back in the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah.
But it's the exception rather than the rule. Money
Coach,
is still the rule.
Yeah, didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say before we go back to Franz that preseason, Baylor, and these are blue bloods that have won national championships the last 10 years, 15 years, Baylor, Kansas, Gonzaga, North Carolina, they were all ranked preseason at the beginning of the season. They're not even ranked anymore. Coach, take away from today, and I hadn't heard anybody put it like that. That is so powerful of a statement, Franz. The top 25 in college basketball is starting to look a lot like the top 25 in football because they have the money. That's brilliant.
Well, it's true. But you want to know something? One of the things that I love about this Florida team right now, okay, Walter Clayton had to went to Iona.
Yeah.
Didn't have any big time basketball offers. He could have come to Florida and played football, and they would have loved to have had him. Elijah Martin went to Florida Atlantic. He's from that big powerhouse North Pike High School in Summit, Mississippi, just shouting distance from Southwest Mississippi Junior College. Coach, I know you know where they are. And then you look at Will Richard out of Fairburn, Georgia, ends up at Belmont and then transfers in. Alex Condon is from Australia. Yeah. Tommy Hawk biggest offer was Richmond. Denzel Aberdeen, they thought was a throw-in with Riley Kugel. And I could go on and on and on. And this is what makes Florida so intriguing. You got Duke with all these 5-star guys, and I guarantee you Duke would be 10-8 in the SEC. Maybe. I mean, come on. You're telling me that going to Wake Forest Gump or to Armpits or to Syracuse in the snow or Boston College, you tell me that's a tough road trip? You give me a break.
Yeah.
You go to Starkville, and those people, I mean, there's nothing to do. You can stand at the top of the stadium with binoculars, and all you can see are cows for 40 miles in any direction.
It's a nice view. I like that.
If you're big into cows, Starkville is the place for you.
I'll take a good steak any day.
But here's the deal. Those people have nothing to do. Yeah. So when you bring your basketball team in there, they sit there, they've been bored for a week, and they sit there and say, this is a chance to yell my lungs out. I got another week before I have to do it again. So they'll start screaming again. You don't have that situation in the ACC. You don't have it even in the Big 12 anymore. But I'll tell you what, the SEC's got it. And the SEC has become the league that everybody's always been afraid they would become. And coaches hit the nail on the head. The football money is so big in the SEC that now they're putting it into basketball, and it's a difference maker. And it's not just they're putting it into buying players. Everybody's been buying them for years, especially up in Kentucky. The difference is that now everybody is upgrading facilities. Teams are not flying, sitting at the airport waiting for a commercial flight. They got charters, etc., like that. Even in basketball, etc. Or if you're like Florida, you got your own plane. So,
friends, look, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We're about to get whacked with a big storm. I think it's hitting you there in Gainesville, but I got to tell you, Coach, you may say, well, I don't follow basketball like I do football. You're pretty damn amazing because you're very smart, because you're obviously paying attention to it, because I don't stump you on anything. You know what you're doing. You're a very smart man. Friends, ditto. Brendan, God bless you, man. I know he's dealing with the storm, so we're going to wrap up before we just get knocked off the air. But that statement, man, I tell you what, I'm feeling a lot better than I did Saturday afternoon at the last second buzzer shot. And you know what? Wasn't like Auburn didn't celebrate in Tuscaloosa. Alabama was having fun with it too. And my Alabama friends, and I got a ton of them, they know better than to text me right after that. They wait 5 minutes. But look, this is what's so much fun, is getting people like y'all on here together, man. It's absolute synergy and chemistry. I absolutely love it. So most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We're the most blessed people in the greatest country in the history of the world. The power of the freedom of speech on this show, Sidelines, gets stronger every day, man. Executive producer Brendan Martin. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Go make something great. See you tomorrow.